The reason greed always ends in loss is not bad luck or a sudden market correction. It is a brutal mathematical trap built into the very nature of human desire. For thousands of years, this exact warning was embedded in a story everyone knows and almost nobody understood. King Midas did not just make a miscalculation. He triggered an ancient law of wealth that most people violate every single day. By the end of this teaching, you will know exactly how to dismantle this trap before it claims your resources and your life. A prayer for your deliverance from the cycle of endless accumulation awaits you at the close. The great deception of greed is this. You have been taught that greed is simply wanting too much. You have been told it is a moral failing, a character flaw of the cartoonishly rich, a sin reserved for those who already have more than they could ever spend. The world tells you that as long as you are just trying to get ahead, as long as you are just trying to secure your future, you are not greedy. The world is giving you a deadly anesthetic disguised as ambition. Here is the diagnosis, and it is brutal. Greed is not a feeling. Greed is a structural defect in how you measure success. It is the complete absence of a finish line. When you operate without a defined point of enough, every single action you take becomes a desperate attempt to fill a void that expands exactly as fast as you pour resources into it. The person who works 80 hours a week to hoard capital they will never deploy is not building an empire. They are building their own prison. The curse of Midas was never about gold itself. Gold was only the visible symbol. The real curse was that he lost the ability to experience reality without converting it into value. Every object became a transaction. Every interaction became an asset. Every moment became something to extract from, rather than something to live inside. That is why the myth survives thousands of years later. It is not ancient history. It is a perfect description of the modern mind. Look carefully at the world around you. People no longer ask whether they enjoy their lives. They ask whether their lives are productive. Every hobby must become a side hustle. Every talent must become monetized. Every free hour is viewed as wasted potential if it is not generating income, attention, or status. Even rest is optimized now. Sleep is tracked. Exercise is quantified. Relationships are measured by utility and networking potential. Human beings are slowly transforming themselves into financial instruments. And the terrifying part is that society rewards this transformation. The modern economy praises exhaustion as virtue. It celebrates burnout as evidence of commitment. A man who destroys his health chasing numbers is called disciplined. A woman who sacrifices every moment of peace to stay competitive is called ambitious. Meanwhile, the system quietly consumes the only thing neither kings nor billionaires can ever recover once it is spent: time. This is why wealthy people often remain deeply afraid. Fear does not disappear with accumulation, because accumulation itself becomes the addiction. The mind adapts to every new level of comfort almost immediately. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation. But ancient civilizations understood the phenomenon long before modern science gave it a name. Desire expands faster than possession. The horizon keeps moving. The finish line retreats every time you approach it. Midas believed infinite conversion would eliminate uncertainty from his life. Instead, it eliminated life itself. Imagine the horror of realizing that the gift you prayed for has made human connection impossible. Imagine holding your daughter and feeling her skin harden into cold metal. Imagine sitting before a feast with limitless wealth and being unable to consume a single bite. This is not fantasy. It is metaphor, compressed into narrative form. The Greeks encoded psychological truths into myths because stories survive longer than lectures. And today, millions of people are living out the Midas paradox without recognizing it. They wake up as market prices. They measure their self-worth through account balances. They postpone joy until retirement. They sacrifice friendships, health, marriages, and peace in exchange for abstract digital numbers displayed on screens. Then one day they discover that the years disappeared while they were preparing to finally start living. The financial machine understands this weakness perfectly. Entire industries are built around manufacturing dissatisfaction. Advertising functions by convincing you that your current existence is incomplete. Social media amplifies this by placing you in constant comparison with carefully edited illusions of success. Someone always appears richer, younger, stronger, happier, more attractive, more accomplished. The result is a civilization trapped in psychological scarcity, regardless of material abundance. The ancient Stoics warned about this repeatedly. They argued that a person who depends on external accumulation for inner peace will remain permanently vulnerable because external conditions can always change. Markets crash, empires collapse, currencies inflate, businesses fail, health disappears. Death arrives without negotiation. If your sense of stability depends entirely on possession, then fear becomes inevitable, because possession itself is temporary. This does not mean wealth is evil. Poverty is not enlightenment. Financial freedom matters. Security matters. The ability to provide for your family matters. But there is a profound difference between using money as a tool and worshiping it as salvation. One creates freedom. The other creates captivity, disguised as success. The deepest lesson hidden inside the story of Midas is not, "Money cannot buy happiness." That phrase is too simplistic. The real lesson is far more unsettling. It is that the human mind can become so obsessed with converting life into value that it loses the ability to recognize value in life itself. And once that happens, no amount of gold is enough. Buffett's rules sound simple on the surface, almost childish in their repetition, but underneath them sits an ancient understanding of human weakness. Most fortunes are not destroyed by poverty. They are destroyed by excess confidence. Men rarely collapse because they had too little ambition. They collapse because they believed there was no longer any limit to what they could safely touch. The pattern repeats endlessly across history. In the roaring markets before every financial catastrophe, people convince themselves that this time is different. During the Dutch tulip mania in the 17th century, ordinary citizens sold property and life savings to speculate on flower bulbs whose prices detached completely from reality. Before the crash of 1929, investors borrowed recklessly to chase stock prices that seemed incapable of falling. Before the housing collapse of 2008, banks and individuals alike behaved as though risk itself had been permanently abolished. The language always changes, the technology changes, the assets change, but the psychology never changes. The crematistique mind cannot recognize enough. That is why greed is so dangerous. It disguises itself as logic. It speaks in the language of opportunity. It tells you that stopping is weakness, that taking profit is cowardice, that caution is for people who lack vision. And because society celebrates visible success while hiding invisible collapse, people only see the winners during the ascent. They do not see the graveyard waiting underneath the ice. This is why truly wise investors often appear boring. They resist the emotional intoxication of infinite growth. They understand something the modern world refuses to teach. Survival is more important than expansion. Compounding only works if you remain alive long enough to benefit from it. A single catastrophic mistake can erase decades of disciplined progress. Look carefully at nature itself. Every healthy system contains limits. The human body cannot grow forever. Forest fires clear dead growth before collapse becomes total. Even the heart operates through cycles of contraction and release. But modern culture teaches perpetual acceleration, more productivity, more leverage, more consumption, more optimization, more extraction. It is an ideology of endless expansion inside a finite human life. And finite things break under infinite pressure. The tragedy is that many people only recognize this after sacrifice has already consumed the best years of their existence. They spend decades postponing life for the promise of eventual freedom, only to arrive at the destination emotionally exhausted, spiritually numb, and physically depleted. They finally possess the wealth they chased, but discover they no longer possess the energy, relationships, or inner peace necessary to enjoy it. That is the hidden cost. No balance sheet records. Ancient philosophers understood that the purpose of wealth was stability, not worship. Money was meant to create space for virtue, contemplation, family, health, generosity, and participation in life. It was never meant to become a substitute for life itself. But when accumulation becomes identity, every financial fluctuation begins to feel like a threat to your very existence. A market decline no longer feels like a temporary event. It feels like personal annihilation. This is why some of the wealthiest individuals in the world remain incapable of rest. They are not protecting money anymore. They are protecting the illusion that more money will finally quiet the fear inside them. But fear built on internal emptiness cannot be solved externally. The hunger only grows. And perhaps this is the darkest irony of all. The person obsessed with keeping everything often loses the ability to experience anything. He becomes like Midas, sitting alone in a palace full of gold, starving beside a banquet he cannot eat from, surrounded by abundance, yet psychologically trapped in scarcity. So the real question is not how much you can accumulate. The real question is whether you know where enough exists. Because if you do not define that boundary yourself, the world will never define it for you. The machine profits from your endless dissatisfaction. It benefits from your inability to stop touching things. And if you never learn to stop, eventually, the gold owns you instead of the other way around. Greed makes you forget rule number 1. Greed makes you focus entirely on how much you can make, blinding you to how much you can lose. You risk what you have and what you need for what you do not have and do not need. The story of Midas reveals that the moment you prioritize the accumulation of the asset over the utility of the asset, you have already lost. Here is where the trap becomes invisible. You disguise your greed as providing for your family. You tell yourself you are building generational wealth. But stop and ask yourself something honest. Can you act? If your answer requires selling something first, you have broken the balance. If you cannot take a week off to sit with your children because your portfolio requires your constant monitoring to prevent collapse, you are not wealthy. You are a highly paid hostage. This worked in ancient Phrygia. It works today. The man who understands his limits is the only man who is truly free. Charlie Munger understood this deeply. Munger stated that the big money is not in the buying and the selling, but in the waiting. Notice the profound discipline in that statement. Waiting requires the total subjugation of greed. Greed demands action. Greed demands constant movement. Greed screams at you that you are missing out, that others are getting rich faster than you, that you must execute a trade, launch a product, leverage an asset right this second. Munger knew that the patient man takes the wealth of the impatient man. But here is the deeper principle Midas discovered the hard way. Munger also gave us the ultimate tool for defeating the Midas trap. He said, invert. Always invert. Instead of asking how you can make infinite money, ask yourself what behavior is guaranteed to destroy the money you already have. The answer is always greed. The answer is always reaching for the thing that is just outside your margin of safety. If this teaching is shifting something in your understanding, if you can see now that there is a different way to build, tap the like button right now. It helps this message reach the people who need it most. And if you want more of the wisdom the Midas Code contains, subscribe to this channel. There is much more coming. Practical application begins with defining the boundaries of your own desires. You must build the architecture that protects you from yourself. Here is the actionable framework, and it requires no special expertise, only honesty about where you are right now. Step 1. Define the finish line. You must sit down in total silence and write out the exact mathematical number that represents enough for your household. This is the oikonomia number. It is the number where your basic needs, your security, and your freedom are fully funded. Until you write this number down, you are playing a game with no end, and a game with no end can only be lost. Establish the limit. Step 2. Invert the desire. Look at your current financial strategies. Ask yourself not what could go right, but what could destroy you if it goes wrong. Identify the one investment, the one habit, or the one debt that is driven purely by the desire for more rather than the requirement for enough. Once you identify that toxic position, You must begin dismantling it today. Cut the exposure. Step 3. Build the safety wall. Implement the margin of safety in every single transaction. If a deal requires everything to go perfectly for you to survive, walk away. You must deliberately leave money on the table. Leaving the last 10% of profit for the next man is not a loss. It is the premium you pay for your own psychological survival. It is the antidote to the Midas curse. Step 4. Wash in the river. When Midas begged Dionysus to take the golden touch away, the god told him to go to the river Pactolus and wash himself in the headwaters. You must actively cleanse your mind of the constant noise of the crematistic system. Turn off the financial news that profits from your panic. Stop looking at the portfolios of people you do not know. Disconnect from the machine that feeds your anxiety. This is not complicated. This is ancient wisdom, rewritten in the language your situation requires. The path to true wealth is not the accumulation of everything you can touch. It is the sovereign control over your own desires. What comes next will go even deeper into the financial principles encoded in the ancient code. Subscribe now, and you will be notified every time a new lesson is released. There are systems of preservation that have survived the collapse of empires, and you need to know them. Before we close, I want to invite you into something different. This prayer is not a formality, it is an alignment. Close your eyes if you can, or simply align your thoughts with mine right now. What comes next is not just words, it is an invitation. Father, we come before you recognizing the deep flaws in our own desires. We confess that we have been seduced by the illusion of infinite accumulation. We have chased the wind. We have sacrificed our peace, our time, and our relationships on the altar of more. We have operated without a finish line, allowing greed to dictate our steps and anxiety to rule our days. Forgive us for treating the tools of provision as idols of worship. We ask for the precise wisdom required to define what is truly enough. Give us the clarity to draw the line between provision and obsession. Open our eyes to the traps we have set for ourselves through leverage, through constant comparison, and through the refusal to be satisfied. We declare that we are not slaves to the endless cycle of accumulation. We are stewards of the resources entrusted to us. We are builders of enduring value, not victims of fleeting markets. We ask that you would sever the root of greed in our minds. Protect us from the arrogance that precedes a fall. Give us the strength to leave the margin of safety intact, to wait with patience, and to prioritize the health of our souls over the size of our accounts. Let our households be places of deep peace, anchored in the reality of your provision, entirely free from the frantic grasping of the world. In the name of Jesus Christ, Amen. Go in peace. The chains of endless desire have been broken today. You are free. Here is where the trap becomes even more sophisticated. The modern financial system has built an entire industry on the foundation of crematistique. It has weaponized your desire for more by convincing you that constant movement is the same as progress. You are told that to be a serious investor, you must be actively trading, constantly analyzing, and perpetually shifting your assets to catch the next wave. This is a lie designed to extract your wealth. The machine profits from your friction. Every time you move, the system takes a piece. Every time you panic, the system feeds. John Bogle understood this invisible extraction better than anyone in the modern era. Bogle founded Vanguard and created the first index fund for the everyday investor. He looked at the frantic, greed-driven environment of Wall Street and realized that the pursuit of infinite, immediate gains was mathematically guaranteed to destroy the wealth of the average person. The fees, the taxes, and the emotional errors caused by greed always outpaced the returns of constant trading. Bogle instituted a system of profound boredom. He advocated for low-cost, passive accumulation, zero leverage, and an unbreakable long-term horizon. Notice the absolute rejection of the Midas temptation in Bogle's approach. He did not promise that everything you touch would turn to gold tomorrow. He promised that if you stopped touching your investments, if you stopped trying to force the market to bend to your greed, you would capture the natural growth of human progress over decades. Most people cannot do this. They cannot endure the stillness. Their greed demands that they act. They look at a simple index fund and think it is too slow. They want the golden touch. They want the secret crypto coin, the leveraged options play, the overnight explosion of wealth. And in reaching for the golden touch, they trigger the exact curse Midas experienced. They turn their hard-earned capital into ash. Consider what this means in practical terms. When you adopt Bogle's philosophy, you are not just making a financial decision. You are making a spiritual and psychological declaration. You are stating that you refuse to let the anxiety of accumulation dictate your daily life. You build the asset, you secure the perimeter, and then you walk away to live your actual life. But there is a final layer to this trap, and it is the most dangerous one of all. Even if you learn to wait like Munger, even if you protect your margin of safety like Graham, and even if you automate your accumulation like Bogle, you still face the ultimate question of purpose. What is the gold actually for? If you do not answer this question, the gold will eventually consume you, no matter how carefully you invested it. We find the ultimate antidote to the Midas trap not in a modern hedge fund manager, but in an 18th century cleric. John Wesley observed the rising wealth of the Industrial Revolution and saw the exact same human ruin that Aristotle had warned about centuries earlier. Men were accumulating massive fortunes, and their souls were rotting from the inside out. Wesley did not condemn wealth. He understood oikonomia. He understood that capital is a powerful tool for building and sustaining life. In his famous sermon on the use of money, Wesley delivered a three-part framework that completely neutralizes the crematistique virus. Notice the exact progression of his words. Gain all you can. Save all you can. Give all you can. This is not a suggestion. This is a mechanism for survival. The first step, gain all you can, honors the human drive to produce, to work, and to build. The second step, save all you can, establishes the margin of safety and the defense against the future. But it is the third step that saves your life. Give all you can. Here is what most people miss entirely. They stop at step 2. They gain, and they save. They build massive reservoirs of capital, but they build no outlet. A reservoir without an outlet is not a lake. It is a swamp. The water stagnates. It becomes toxic. When you only accumulate and never release, the wealth turns inward and begins to poison your character. Giving is not just a moral obligation. It is the release valve that stops the Midas curse from solidifying your heart. When you deliberately give your wealth away, you are breaking the psychological hold that the money has over you. You are proving to yourself that you serve a higher purpose than the accumulation of metal or digital numbers. You are declaring that the money is a tool in your hand, not a master over your mind. Stop and ask yourself something honest. When was the last time you deliberately gave away a sum of money that actually required you to adjust your own comfort? If your giving is only what is left over, you have not broken the curse. You are still operating under the illusion that you need infinite resources to be safe. The story of Midas reveals that salvation did not come when he learned to manage the gold better. Salvation came when he begged the god to take the power away, when he realized that true wealth was the ability to touch his daughter and feel human warmth, not cold metal. He had to be washed in the river to be cleansed of the desire for infinite conversion.